The Kareth Dominion had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 5,000 years. Their fleet stretched across star systems, and their influence crushed any resistance that dared to rise. To them, new species were nothing more than resources, civilizations to be harvested, enslaved, or erased. On the cold edge of Dominion space, a small patrol fleet drifted silently. Their mission was simple: scan the void for intruders, catalog anomalies, and ensure the Kareth banner remained unchallenged. Then their long-range sensors picked up something unusual. "Commander," one of the technicians called, his voice trembling. "We have detected a warship. Unknown signature." The commander turned, his scaled eyes narrowing. Unknown signatures were rare. Most species in this quadrant were already cataloged, their ships identified, their weaknesses mapped. But this one, it was different. The sensor data scrolled across the display. A warship, yes, but unlike anything the Kareth had seen. Its hull design was crude, almost brutalist, built for function rather than elegance. Its power readings were strange too, spiking far beyond what such a ship should carry. What species dares enter our territory without identification? The commander hissed. "Open a full scan. Strip its secrets." The crew obeyed, flooding the alien ship with invisible beams, probing its defenses, measuring its heart. But what they found made the entire bridge fall into silence. The ship was alive with scars. Its armor plates were patched and dented, its hull scorched by countless battles. Yet it was still standing. Power bled from its core like fire, stronger than anything in their databases. And inside were humans. The Kareth had heard whispers of them, just faint rumors from the outer colonies. A young species, primitive, reckless, barely capable of spaceflight. Not worth notice, but this warship was different. It carried the weight of centuries in its steel. Every scan brought back the same message. This was not just a vessel. It was a survivor. One officer whispered almost to himself. How can they endure such destruction and remain functional? This ship should have been destroyed 100 times over. The commander stared at the data, uneasy. The more they scanned, the more unsettling it became. This was not the fragile prey they had expected. This was something else. Something dangerous. The alien commander sat stiffly in his chair, his scaled fingers gripping the armrest as the strange readings kept flooding in. Every number on the screen made less sense than the last. "Report," he growled. The sensor officer swallowed nervously. "Commander, this warship does not match any known patterns. Its engines are unstable but incredibly powerful. Its armor is mismatched, reinforced with strange alloys, some we cannot even identify. And there is something else." The officer paused, his frills shivered in fear. "Speak," the commander snapped. "There are human life signs on board. Not hundreds, but only a handful. Yet the ship registers as fully operational. By all logic, this vessel should not be flying at all. It is like a ghost ship that refuses to die." The commander turned his gaze toward the holographic projection. The warship drifted slowly through the void, scarred yet unbroken. Its hull bore the marks of countless battles, blackened scorch marks, gashes sealed by crude plating, shattered antennae. But even through the wounds, it radiated something terrifying, an aura of endurance. One younger officer whispered, almost in awe, "It is not a warship. It is a survivor." The commander's tail lashed the floor. "Nonsense. Every ship has a limit. This vessel must be an illusion or a trap." But even as he spoke, doubt coiled in his chest. The scans revealed layers of weapons, missile bays, railguns, plasma cannons. None were the most advanced by Dominion standards, yet their sheer number was overwhelming. It was as if the humans had built this warship with one belief: if it could fire, it would fight. If it could move, it would charge. The commander finally said, "Hail them. I want to know what kind of beings send such a broken vessel into our space." A communication pulse was sent. Static filled the bridge for long moments. Then unexpectedly, a human face appeared on their display. The crew recoiled. The man looked tired, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. His face was scarred, his uniform singed, yet he stood straight with a soldier's pride. Behind him, sparks flickered from damaged consoles. The warship was clearly bleeding. "This is Captain Elias Kane of the UNS Vanguard," the man's voice rang out, deep and steady. "Identify yourselves." The commander stared, cold amusement curling his lips. "You are trespassing in Dominion space, human. State your purpose or be destroyed. For a moment, silence. Then Kane gave a small, almost bitter smile. Destroyed? You think you're the first to try? This ship has faced horrors your kind cannot imagine. And we are still here. The bridge fell quiet. Something in Kane's voice, calm, certain, yet carrying the weight of grief, sent a shiver through even the hardened warriors of the Dominion. This was not arrogance. It was truth. The commander forced a laugh, though his frills trembled. Your vessel is damaged. You are outnumbered. What hope do you have against the Dominion fleet? Captain Kane's eyes hardened. Behind him, a wall display lit up, showing rows of names etched into the ship's memory banks. Names of the fallen. Thousands of them. Hope? Kane said softly. Hope died a long time ago. What we carry now is duty. The words struck the crew like a thunderclap. The commander suddenly felt as though he were not looking at a lone, battered ship. He was staring at something much greater, an unbroken spirit forged through endless battles. For the first time in years, the Kareth commander felt something alien in his heart. He felt fear. The Dominion commander leaned forward, his scaled face lit by the pale glow of the display. The human captain's words echoed in his mind, sharp as blades. Hope died a long time ago. What we carry now is duty. Duty. The word did not sound like a boast. It sounded like a wound that never healed. Commander, one of the younger officers whispered, shall we fire upon them? Their defenses are weak. We can end this now. The commander opened his mouth to agree, but hesitation stopped him. Something about this ship disturbed him. It should not exist, and yet it did. Its captain should have surrendered, yet he stood defiant. He turned back to the projection of the human warship, drifting but steady as if daring them to strike. Inside the Vanguard, Captain Elias Kane stood in silence after the Dominion transmission ended. Around him, his crew worked quietly, patching damaged systems, sealing ruptured conduits, running on little rest. Their faces were pale, their eyes heavy with exhaustion, yet not a single one complained. They all carried the same burden. Kane walked the length of the bridge, his hand brushing against a wall where names were engraved, crewmates who had fallen, battles that had nearly ended them. Each name was a reminder. The Vanguard had not been born as it was now. Once it had been a standard human warship, built for patrol duty on the frontier. But years of war had reshaped it into something else, something between legend and nightmare. Every scar on its hull told a story. Every broken panel spoke of a battle survived by will alone. Kane remembered one such battle clearly. A swarm of Zorathi raiders had surrounded them, ships faster and stronger. The Vanguard should have been torn apart in minutes. Instead, the crew fought like demons, refusing to abandon ship. Fire consumed half the decks, casualties mounted, yet still they pressed on until the raiders fled into the void. It had been like that again and again. Enemies stronger, faster, deadlier. But the Vanguard always survived. Not because it was invincible, but because the humans aboard it refused to let it die. Kane closed his eyes for a moment. He could still hear the screams of those who hadn't made it. He carried their voices with him as surely as the weight of command. Duty. That was what kept him standing now, even as the Dominion loomed before them. Captain, his first officer spoke softly, pulling him from his thoughts. Dominion scans are intensifying. They are afraid of us. Kane opened his eyes. There was no arrogance in his gaze, only a grim truth. They should be. The Dominion commander back aboard his flagship watched the data grow stranger by the second. The ship's systems should have failed long ago. Its engines ran at dangerous levels. Its weapons were patched together like scrap, and yet it functioned as if driven by something unseen. It is impossible, the science officer muttered. The laws of war do not allow such survival. But the commander knew better. This was not about laws, nor about machines. It was about the beings inside. The humans. He remembered the captain's face, the scar, the fire in his eyes, the way he spoke of duty. It was not the words of a conqueror. It was the voice of someone who had walked through hell and refused to bow. For the first time, the commander wondered if his fleet had made a mistake. They had locked onto a target thinking it was prey. But what if it was something else? A predator, wounded but unbroken. The commander's tail twitched in unease. He gave the order quietly, almost reluctantly. Hold fire! I want to see what the... as human ship does next. Across the void, the Vanguard moved forward, slow but steady. Its battered hull gleamed in the starlight. It was not a warship that should have existed, but it did, and the galaxy was not ready for it. The Dominion fleet surrounded the human warship in a loose formation, their sleek vessels gleaming with polished armor and flawless engineering. By every measure of logic, the Vanguard should have been trembling before such power, but inside its scarred hull there was no trembling. Captain Elias Kane stood tall at the center of the bridge. The air was heavy with tension, but his crew's hands moved with steady determination. They had been through worse. They had stood at the edge of destruction too many times to count. "Captain," the first officer whispered. "They are holding fire. They are waiting." "Watching," Kane gave a small nod. "Then let them watch." Outside, the Vanguard pushed forward through the void, its engines rumbling with stubborn defiance. The Dominion commander, watching from his flagship, narrowed his eyes. Every instinct told him to unleash his fleet, to erase this strange intruder. But something deeper, something primal kept his order locked behind his teeth. He remembered the human captain's voice. That voice was not the voice of prey. On the Vanguard, systems flickered with sparks. Life support ran at half capacity. Many decks remained sealed off, their corridors filled with twisted steel and lingering smoke. Yet the crew moved with quiet strength. They had long since accepted that survival was not guaranteed. What mattered was how they faced the end. Kane walked to the observation window. Beyond it, he could see the Dominion fleet, dozens of ships perfect and unscarred. But perfection did not frighten him. No, what frightened him was the silence. Why had they not attacked? Why were they waiting? He whispered to himself, "They sense it, don't they? They sense we will not bow." The first officer, a woman with tired eyes and a steady voice, joined him. "Captain, if this is our last stand..." He turned to her, his face calm. "Then we make it one they will never forget." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Meanwhile, aboard the Dominion flagship, officers debated furiously. "They are only one ship." A young warrior spat. "Why do we hesitate? Strike now and scatter their ashes." The commander silenced him with a raised claw. "You do not understand. That vessel, it should be dead. Yet it lives, and its crew does not fear us. Tell me, what enemy fights without fear?" The room fell silent. The commander's gaze returned to the holographic image of the Vanguard. For the first time in centuries, he felt as though he were standing before something he could not fully measure. Not power, not technology, something deeper, spirit. Back on the human warship, Kane spoke quietly to his crew. His voice carried not only command, but also the weight of every soul they had lost along the way. "We are not just a ship," he told them. "We are a memory of everyone who stood before us, everyone who refused to fall. If this is where we end, then let the galaxy remember that humans do not break." The words filled the bridge like fire in cold air. The crew straightened, their exhaustion fading behind hardened resolve. They knew their captain spoke truth. Even if they died here, they would not be forgotten. And as if the universe itself heard their vow, the stars outside seemed to burn brighter. The Dominion commander leaned forward, his claws tapping nervously. He could not explain it, but the more he looked at the Vanguard, the more his chest tightened. It was not a warship to him anymore, it was a warning. A warning that if humans could build one such vessel, they could build more. The thought unsettled him more than any weapon ever could. He whispered to himself, "Perhaps this galaxy is not ours alone anymore." And still, the Vanguard sailed forward, scarred but unbroken, carrying the weight of duty into the heart of enemy space. The Dominion fleet finally broke their silence. Orders crackled across their channels and weapon systems came online. The darkness of space lit with the glow of charging plasma cannons and missile bays. The human warship, scarred and weary, drifted alone in the middle of the storm. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Elias Kane stood firm. His crew waited for his word. They all knew what was coming. The Dominion had studied them, measured them, hesitated long enough. Now came the test. Kane's voice was calm. "All hands, battle stations." The bridge lights shifted to crimson, casting every face in blood-red glow. Tired hands moved across consoles, activating weapons patched together from battles long past. Old guns that should have been silent roared back to life. Missile tubes repaired with scavenged parts locked into position. The vanguard was ready to fight. Outside, the Dominion commander gave a final order. Crush them. The first wave of fire erupted, blinding plasma bolts streaking toward the human warship, missiles streaking like falling stars. The vanguard shook violently as the onslaught struck. Alarms screamed. Panels exploded with sparks. A lesser ship would have been torn apart in seconds. But the vanguard was no lesser ship. Shields failing, an officer shouted. Kane gritted his teeth. Then we fight without them. The warship turned, engines groaning but refusing to die. Its railguns thundered, hurling slugs at impossible speeds. Missiles streaked from its battered launchers, each one a prayer of defiance. The Dominion fleet recoiled as the human warship answered fire with fire. A cruiser caught a railgun slug and split apart in silence, its remains scattering into the void. Another ship took a direct missile hit and burned like a dying star. The Dominion commander's eyes widened. Impossible. They should not have this strength. Yet the truth blazed before him. The human ship did not fight with clean precision or flawless tactics. It fought with rage, with grief, with unyielding will. Every shot fired was a scream for the fallen. Every explosion was a reminder that humans refused to die quietly. Inside the vanguard, smoke filled the air. Crew members worked with blistered hands, sealing ruptures, dragging the wounded to safety. Fear had no place here, only resolve. Kane's voice carried over the chaos. We are not fighting to survive this day. We are fighting so they will remember us tomorrow. The crew roared in response, their voices shaking the very steel of the ship. Again, the Dominion fired. Again, the vanguard bled. Its hull cracked, its decks burned, yet still it pressed forward. Still it struck back. From the Dominion commander's seat, the battle felt less like combat and more like staring into the heart of something unexplainable. Every logic in his mind told him the human ship should be ash, and yet it fought on. It was not a machine that kept it alive. It was the humans inside, their duty, their memory of the fallen, their refusal to surrender. The commander whispered to himself, "They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for meaning." Another Dominion ship went dark, drifting into silence. The fleet faltered, shaken by the fury of a single vessel that should not exist. And through it all, the vanguard moved like a wounded beast, clawing at its hunters, refusing to lie down. Captain Kane stood at the center, calm as the storm raged around him. His eyes burned with fire, his voice steady as steel. "Let them come," he said softly. "We will show them what humanity truly is." And the warship roared into the void, carrying its crew, its scars, and its unbreakable spirit straight into the heart of the Dominion fleet. The Dominion fleet had expected an easy kill. They had expected fear. They had expected surrender. Instead, they faced the vanguard. Every ship in the human vessel's path fell to its relentless fury. And yet it was not just the weapons that terrified the enemy. It was the crew, faces pale with exhaustion, hands blistered from constant repairs, yet every human moved as if the ship itself were an extension of their will. Captain Elias Kane stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the chaos outside. Every explosion, every flash of light, every screaming hull told the story of survival. But survival alone was not enough. Humans did not simply endure. They adapted, they fought, they learned. "Report," Kane demanded, his voice cutting through the alarms. "All systems patched and holding," the first officer said, her voice steady despite the smoke curling in the room. "Weapons online, shields at 20%, engines stable for now." Kane nodded. He did not flinch. "Then we keep moving. Keep fighting. The moment we hesitate, we lose not just the ship, but everything we stand for." The Dominion commander watched in disbelief as his fleet faltered. Every plan, every prediction, every calculation had failed. The single human warship, battered, scarred, and outnumbered, moved through them like a storm, striking unpredictably, retreating only to strike again. One of his lieutenants shouted, "Commander, they are unstoppable. Every time we disable a system, they repair it immediately." Silence!" the commander barked. But even as he spoke, he could not hide the creeping dread. They had underestimated humans. Not their ships, not their weapons, not even their numbers, but their spirit. Inside the vanguard, Kane walked the length of the bridge. Crew members moved around him, ignoring the smoke, ignoring the heat, ignoring the fear. Each one fought not just for themselves, but for each other. for every human who had fallen before them. A young technician looked up at Kane. Her voice trembled, but determination shone in her eyes. "Captain, we're barely holding. How are we still standing?" Kane smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. "Because we refuse to stop. We carry the memory of everyone who could not fight. We carry the weight of duty. That is stronger than any weapon they can bring." The technician nodded, renewed courage in her gaze. Outside, the Dominion fleet hesitated again. Their confidence had eroded into fear. The humans were not just fighting, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson. They were showing what endurance, unity, and unyielding will could achieve. And then came the moment the commander dreaded most. The Vanguard struck with precision, using every damage system at its disposal. A single well-aimed volley tore through the Dominion Vanguard, crippling 2 ships, sending the rest into chaos. The bridge erupted in cheers. Kane's crew stood, battered but proud. They were still alive. They were still fighting. The Dominion commander could not believe his eyes. 1 ship, 1 human crew, and yet their fleet could not match them. He realized, with a chill running down his spine, that they had faced a species unlike any other, a species whose strength was not measured in numbers or technology, but in heart. Kane stood at the observation window, looking at the scattered enemy ships drifting in the void. His eyes softened for a moment, thinking of the friends and comrades lost along the way. Each victory carried a memory of sacrifice, but there was no time for mourning. The battle was not over. "Prepare for the next wave," Kane said quietly. Yet every word carried authority. "We fight not because we must, but because we can, and because we will not let anyone forget who we are." And in that moment, the Vanguard became more than a ship. It became a symbol, a warning, a testament to the human spirit that refused to bow, refused to break, and refused to surrender, even when the odds were impossible. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter around them, as if acknowledging the courage of the humans who dared to face the galaxy, scars and all, and still stand tall. The void of space was filled with smoke and burning wreckage. The Dominion fleet, once proud and unyielding, now drifted in disarray. Their perfect formations shattered. Their confident eyes now stared in disbelief at the battered human warship that still moved steadily through the chaos. Captain Elias Kane stood at the center of the bridge. His uniform scorched, his face streaked with soot and sweat. He did not smile. He did not shout. He simply watched. Every crew member was exhausted, some wounded, many haunted by memories of the friends they had lost in the battles that had brought them here. And yet each one still moved with purpose, guided by a singular, unshakable resolve. "Damage report," Kane said, his voice calm but commanding. "Shields down to 10%, the first officer replied. "Engines are at critical but stable. Weapons, operational but barely." Kane nodded. He knew this could be their final battle. And yet there was no fear in his eyes. There never had been. Fear had no place on the Vanguard. What mattered was courage. What mattered was duty. "Prepare for the next strike," Kane said quietly. "We do not stop. We do not falter. We do not surrender." Across the void, the Dominion commander's fingers tapped nervously on the control console. He had studied the humans, analyzed them, expected them to break. But the humans refused to break. His officers whispered in awe and fear. "They are impossible. 1 ship against us all." And yet they endure. The commander's eyes hardened. He realized with a sinking feeling that this was more than a warship. It was a statement, a human statement, that even in the face of impossible odds they would fight, and that the galaxy had underestimated them at its peril. Back on the Vanguard, Kane moved to the observation window. The Dominion ships loomed closer, desperate to end the nightmare of a single ship defying them. He remembered the crew who had died before this day. He remembered the battles that should have ended them. He remembered the fear, the loss, the grief, and yet he also remembered why they fought for each other. For humanity, for the memory of everyone who had refused to let their spirit be crushed. "Hold steady," Kane whispered to the crew, "for those who cannot fight. For those who believed in us when all seemed lost. We carry them with us, and we do not fail." The Dominion fleet unleashed its full fury. Explosions tore through space. Fire and debris filled the void. And yet the Vanguard pressed on, taking hits that would have destroyed any other ship. Every scar, every dent, Every patch of reinforced steel was a story of survival, of willpower, of humanity refusing to bow. The crew of the Vanguard worked as one, repairing, firing, moving with a grace that came not from perfection, but from determination. They were more than soldiers. They were legends in the making. Finally, after hours that felt like eternity, the Dominion fleet faltered. Ships that had once been confident now retreated, their pride shattered. The commander realized he could not match the humans, not in technology, not in numbers, not in spirit. Captain Kane lowered his gaze, exhaustion weighing on him. But there was satisfaction in his eyes. They had survived. They had endured. And more than that, they had proven something that would echo through the stars. Humans do not surrender. Humans do not break. Humans endure. The Vanguard sailed onward, battered, scarred, and unbowed. Its lights flickered, its engines groaned, but it was alive. And so was the spirit of every human who had stood on its decks. In that moment, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter. It was not technology or firepower that made the difference. It was courage. It was memory. It was humanity. Unbroken, unstoppable, undeniable. Captain Kane whispered softly to the empty space outside, almost to himself, almost to every soul lost along the way. We endure. We survive, and we rise, always. The galaxy had learned a hard truth that day. Humanity was not just another species. Humanity was a force of nature, and no enemy, not Dominion fleets, not impossible odds, could ever change that. And with that, the Vanguard disappeared into the stars, a living testament to what it truly meant to fight, to survive, and to be human.